Ever heard of the 90s basketball movie where a real punch was thrown on set? The director's next film starred a purple dinosaur, and Wu-Tang's Ghostface Killah made one of his first solo appearances. Sunset Park hides bizarre behind-the-scenes secrets, unexpected career launches, and Hollywood coincidences that will make you see this forgotten gem in a whole new light. Fact 1. Husband-wife production deal. When Sunset Park hit theaters in 1996, audiences might not have realized they were watching one of Hollywood's most interesting behind-the-scenes partnerships play out on screen. The film was produced by Danny DeVito through his production company, Jersey Films, and the lead role of Coach Phyllis Soroka went to none other than his real-life wife, Rhea Perlman. This created an unusual dynamic where a husband was essentially serving as his wife's boss on a major studio production, which is relatively rare in the film industry even today. DeVito had founded Jersey Films in 1991 with Michael Shamberg and Stacey Sher, and the company had already produced successful films like Pulp Fiction and Get Shorty by the time Sunset Park went into production. Perlman, best known for her Emmy-winning role as Carla Tortelli on the sitcom Cheers, was taking on a dramatic lead role that required her to carry the entire film as a tough-talking physical education teacher who reluctantly becomes the coach of a struggling high school basketball team. The casting decision showed DeVito's confidence in his wife's abilities to anchor a sports drama, even though she was primarily known for comedy at that point in her career. While husband-wife collaborations aren't completely unheard of in Hollywood, having one spouse serve as producer while the other takes the starring role creates a unique power dynamic that can be tricky to navigate professionally. The couple, who had been married since 1982 and had 3 children together by the time of filming, managed to keep their working relationship professional throughout the production. This arrangement gave Perlman the opportunity to stretch her acting muscles in a very different kind of role than audiences were used to seeing her in, while DeVito got to support his wife's career growth from behind the scenes. Fact 2. Accidental on-set violence film sets usually have carefully choreographed fight scenes where actors know exactly what to expect, and stunts are planned down to the smallest detail. But during the production of Sunset Park, things didn't go quite as planned during one particular confrontation. In a scene that called for physical tension between characters, rapper and actor Fredro Starr, who was playing the troubled student Shorty, accidentally threw a real punch that connected with Terrence Howard's face. Howard, who was still early in his acting career at the time, was understandably shocked and angry about getting hit for real during what was supposed to be a controlled movie fight. According to reports from the set, Howard's reaction was immediate and intense, and he had to step away from filming to cool down and regain his composure before he could continue working. The incident highlights just how easily things can go wrong on a film set, even when everyone involved has the best intentions and proper safety protocols are supposedly in place. Fredro Starr, a member of the hardcore rap group Onyx, was making one of his early forays into acting with this film, and the accidental punch may have been a result of inexperience with film fighting techniques compared to more seasoned actors. Unlike stage combat or professional wrestling, where performers train extensively to make violence look real without actually hurting anyone, movie fight scenes require precise control and awareness of camera angles and distances. The fact that Howard eventually returned to set and continued filming shows his professionalism, but the incident likely created some tension between the two actors for the remainder of the production. This kind of on-set accident is exactly why fight coordinators and stunt professionals are so important to filmmaking, ensuring that scenes look dramatic and believable without anyone actually getting injured in the process. Fact 3. Director's bizarre career pivot. If you look at director Steve Gomer's filmography, you'll notice one of the most jarring career transitions in Hollywood history sitting right there in black and white. After wrapping production on Sunset Park, a gritty urban drama about inner-city basketball that dealt with themes of poverty, gang violence, and racial tension in Brooklyn, Gomer's very next directorial project was Barney's Great Adventure, a 1998 musical comedy film starring the beloved purple dinosaur from children's television. This might be one of the most dramatic tonal shifts any director has ever made between consecutive projects, going from a film that featured rap music, street language, and teenage angst to a movie designed for preschoolers featuring songs about imagination and friendship. The contrast couldn't be more stark when you consider that Sunset Park was rated PG-13 for language and mature themes, while Barney's Great Adventure was explicitly made for the youngest possible audience. Gomer had previously worked in television, directing episodes of shows like The Cosby Mysteries and Homicide, Life on the Street, before getting the chance to helm Sunset Park as his feature film debut. The fact that his follow-up to a basketball drama was a film where a stuffed dinosaur comes to life and takes children on a magical adventure suggests either an incredibly versatile director or someone who was simply taking whatever work was available in Hollywood at the time. Barney's Great Adventure was produced by Polygram Filmed Entertainment and Hit Entertainment, and while it wasn't a critical success, it did find its audience among families with young children. The jump from coaching dramas to preschool entertainment shows just how unpredictable a director's career path can be in the film industry, where one day you're working with rappers and basketball players, and the next you're coordinating scenes with a person in a dinosaur costume, singing about sharing and caring. Fact 4. Sticky Fingaz's lost role. The role of Drano, one of the key players on the Sunset Park High School basketball team, was originally supposed to go to rapper Sticky Fingaz, who was Fredro Starr's cousin and fellow member of the hardcore hip-hop group Onyx. The two had made their names in the rap world together as part of the group that had scored a major hit with the aggressive track Slam back in 1993, and having both cousins in the film would have been a nice piece of casting that brought real-life chemistry to the screen. However, for reasons that haven't been fully documented in the public record, Sticky Fingaz ended up being replaced by a young actor named Antoine Tanner, who was making his very first appearance in a feature film with this role. The casting change meant that Tanner got his big break in Hollywood through Sunset Park, which would eventually lead to more prominent roles in his career, including a recurring part on the popular television series One Tree Hill, where he played Skills Taylor for multiple seasons. While we don't know exactly why Sticky Fingaz was replaced, it's not uncommon in the film industry for initial casting choices to change during pre-production due to scheduling conflicts, creative differences, or simply because directors decide to go in a different direction with their vision for a character. Sticky Fingaz would go on to have his own successful acting career anyway, appearing in films like Ride and later landing a starring role in the television series Blade, the series, so losing this particular role didn't derail his Hollywood ambitions in the long run. For Antoine Tanner, though, getting cast as Drano after Sticky Fingaz dropped out turned out to be a career-defining moment that launched him into the entertainment industry. It's one of those interesting what-if scenarios in film history, where you wonder how different both actors' careers might have been if the original casting had stuck. Fact 5. Ghostface Killah's solo breakthrough. The Sunset Park soundtrack became an important milestone in hip-hop history because it featured one of Ghostface Killah's earliest solo appearances on the track Motherless Child, which helped establish him as an artist who could stand on his own outside of the Wu-Tang Clan. Ghostface, whose real name is Dennis Coles, had been an integral part of the Wu-Tang Clan since their formation and had appeared on their groundbreaking debut album Enter the Wu-Tang, 36 Chambers, back in 1993, but he hadn't yet released any solo material under his own name. The Sunset Park soundtrack, which was released by East West Records in April of 1996, gave Ghostface the opportunity to showcase his unique vocal style and lyrical abilities without being surrounded by the other 8 members of the Wu-Tang Clan. Motherless Child demonstrated his ability to carry a track on his own and build anticipation for what would come later that same year when he released his debut solo album Iron Man in October of 1996. The timing worked out perfectly because the Sunset Park soundtrack served as a preview of what Ghostface could do as a solo artist, and when Iron Man dropped just a few months later, fans who had heard Motherless Child were already primed and ready for a full-length Ghostface project. The Wu-Tang Clan had a strategy of launching solo careers for their members throughout the mid-90s, with Method Man, Old Dirty Bastard, Raekwon, and Jeezy all releasing solo albums before Ghostface got his turn. The Sunset Park soundtrack became part of that larger Wu-Tang ecosystem, where members would appear on various movie soundtracks, compilations, and guest verses to build their individual profiles while still maintaining their connection to the group. This approach proved incredibly successful and helped make the Wu-Tang Clan one of the most influential and commercially successful hip-hop collectives of all time. Fact 6. Madison Square Garden's High School Game 1 of the most extravagant production decisions in Sunset Park was filming the climactic championship basketball game at Madison Square Garden, one of the most famous and iconic sports arenas in the entire world. Located in Manhattan, Madison Square Garden has hosted countless legendary events, including NBA championships, NHL Stanley Cup Finals, boxing matches, concerts, and political conventions, making it hallowed ground for sports fans and New Yorkers alike. For the filmmakers to secure access to this venue and stage an entire high school basketball championship game, there was a significant production achievement that gave the movie a level of authenticity and scale that most sports films can't afford. In reality, New York City high school basketball championships are actually played at Madison Square Garden, so the filmmakers were being true to life by using the actual venue where these games take place rather than faking it with a smaller gym or soundstage. The New York State Public High School Athletic Association has held its championship games at the Garden for decades, making it a dream destination for young basketball players across the state who hope to one day play on the same court where Knicks legends like Walt Frazier, Willis Reed, and Patrick Ewing made their names. By filming at Madison Square Garden, Sunset Park was able to capture the real atmosphere and energy of what it feels like to play basketball in such a prestigious venue, with the massive seating capacity and professional-level facilities creating a visual spectacle that elevated the film's finale. The production would have needed to coordinate with Madison Square Garden's management, work around the arena's busy schedule of events, and likely pay substantial fees for access and filming rights. Getting permission to film at such a high-profile location also required cooperation from the venue's ownership and possibly even the NBA and the New York Knicks organization, making this a complex logistical achievement for a relatively modest sports drama. Fact 7. Brooklyn Film, California Gym. Despite Sunset Park being very specifically set in the Brooklyn neighborhood that gives the film its title, and despite the story being deeply rooted in New York City's urban landscape and basketball culture, some of the movie's interior gymnasium scenes were actually filmed over 2,700 miles away at Santa Monica High School in Los Angeles, California. This is a perfect example of the kind of Hollywood movie magic that audiences rarely notice, but happens all the time in film production, where practical considerations like scheduling, budget, and location availability mean that filmmakers have to get creative about where they actually shoot their scenes. Santa Monica High School, located near the beach in one of Los Angeles's more affluent neighborhoods, looks absolutely nothing like a struggling Brooklyn public school from the outside. But once you're inside a basketball gymnasium with the right lighting and camera angles, it's much harder for viewers to tell exactly where the filming is taking place. The production team would have had to carefully control what appeared in the background of shots to avoid showing anything that would obviously identify the location as being in California rather than New York, like palm trees visible through windows or architectural details that don't match Brooklyn schools. This kind of location substitution is incredibly common in filmmaking because it's often cheaper and more convenient to shoot in Los Angeles, where most of the film industry's infrastructure is located, even when a story is set somewhere else entirely. The filmmakers did shoot some scenes on location in New York to establish the Brooklyn setting and provide authentic exterior shots. But when it came time to film extended sequences that required controlling lighting, sound, and scheduling with large groups of actors, it made more sense to use a Los Angeles location where they had more flexibility and control. For viewers watching the finished film, this geographic sleight of hand is essentially invisible unless you're specifically looking for continuity errors or geographic inconsistencies. Fact 8. Inspired by 60 Minutes. The entire concept for Sunset Park came from screenwriter Seth Zvi Rosenfeld watching a segment on the long-running CBS News magazine show 60 Minutes back in 1994. The story that caught Rosenfeld's attention featured a real female coach who had taken over a difficult inner-city boys basketball team in Brooklyn and managed to turn the players' lives around through discipline, dedication, and genuine care for their well-being. This kind of inspirational sports story has become a familiar template in Hollywood over the years, with films like Coach Carter, Remember the Titans, and Hoosiers, all following similar patterns of underdog teams overcoming obstacles. But Rosenfeld was inspired to write his own version after seeing the real-life coach profiled on national television. The 60-minute segment would have provided Rosenfeld with the basic framework for his screenplay, showing him the challenges that a female coach would face trying to earn respect from teenage boys in a male-dominated sport, as well as the broader social issues affecting students in under-resourced urban schools. Rosenfeld, who was also an actor and playwright in addition to being a screenwriter, saw the dramatic potential in this true story and developed it into the script that would eventually become Sunset Park. The film was meant to tackle serious issues like poverty, gang violence, absent fathers, and the educational system's failures while still functioning as an entertaining sports movie with crowd-pleasing basketball sequences and an underdog narrative. By grounding his screenplay in a real story that had been documented by one of television's most respected news programs, Rosenfeld gave the project an authenticity and credibility that purely fictional sports movies sometimes lack. The 60 Minutes connection also likely helped when it came time to pitch the script to producers and studios, because having a real-life inspiration that had already been vetted and presented by CBS News gave the project built-in legitimacy and showed that there was genuine public interest in this type of story. Fact 9. The Wood Reunion. Just 3 years after Sunset Park was released, 3 members of its cast found themselves working together again on a completely different film called The Wood, creating an unexpected connection between 2 movies that on the surface have very little in common. Deandra Bonds, Antwon Tanner, and Melinda Williams all appeared in both films, though they played very different characters in very different stories. The Wood, which came out in 1999, was a coming-of-age comedy drama set in Inglewood, California, that followed 3 childhood friends as they navigated adolescence, first loves, and the bonds of friendship, with the story told through flashbacks on the day of one friend's wedding. This was a much lighter and more nostalgic film than Sunset Park's serious basketball drama, but having 3 actors reunite from the earlier project created an interesting bit of trivia for film fans who pay attention to such things. Deandra Bonds, who had played one of the basketball players in Sunset Park, took on a more prominent role in The Wood as one of the 3 main friends whose story drives the narrative. Antwon Tanner, who had made his film debut as Drano in Sunset Park after replacing Sticky Fingaz, appeared in The Wood in a supporting role that further established him as a rising young actor in Hollywood. Melinda Williams, who had played a smaller role in Sunset Park, also returned for The Wood, continuing to build her resume of film work during this productive period of her career. These kinds of casting overlaps happen fairly regularly in Hollywood, especially among actors who are roughly the same age and ethnicity, and who end up competing for similar roles, but it's still notable when multiple cast members from one film end up working together again so soon afterward. The Wood went on to become a modest commercial success and has developed a cult following over the years, particularly among audiences who grew up in the 90s and appreciate its nostalgic look at black middle-class life in Los Angeles during that era. Fact 10. Terrence Howard's early role. Long before Terrence Howard became a household name with his Oscar-nominated performance in Hustle and Flow and his role as James Rhodes in the first Iron Man movie, he was a young actor grinding it out in small film roles trying to build a career in Hollywood. Sunset Park represents one of his earliest appearances in a feature film, and if you look at the credits, you'll see him listed under his full name, Terrence Deshawn Howard, rather than the shortened version he would use later in his career. Howard was born in 1969 in Chicago and had been working in television and small film roles throughout the early 90s, but he hadn't yet broken through to major stardom when Sunset Park went into production in 1995. His role in the film was relatively small as one of the basketball players on the Sunset Park High School team, but every actor has to start somewhere, and Howard was willing to take whatever work he could get while building his resume and learning his craft. This was the same year that Howard appeared in another film called Mr. Holland's Opus, which gave him slightly more screen time and recognition, but he was still several years away from landing the kinds of meaty, dramatic roles that would showcase his talent and intensity as a performer. Howard's career trajectory from small supporting roles in films like Sunset Park to eventually becoming an Academy Award nominee and earning millions of dollars per film is a testament to his persistence and dedication to his craft. By the time he starred in Hustle and Flow in 2005, playing a Memphis pimp trying to make it as a rapper, Howard had developed into one of Hollywood's most compelling dramatic actors. But it took years of smaller roles and steady work to get to that level. The fact that he took a real punch from Fred Starr during the filming of Sunset Park and came back to finish the job shows the kind of toughness and professionalism that would serve him well throughout his career. Fact 11. Platinum soundtrack, forgotten film. In one of the most lopsided commercial outcomes in movie history, the Sunset Park soundtrack massively outperformed the actual film it was created to promote, achieving platinum certification and reaching number 4 on the Billboard 200 chart, while the movie itself struggled to find an audience in theaters. The soundtrack featured an impressive lineup of mid-90s hip-hop talent, including Wu-Tang Clan members, Naughty by Nature, Buckshot, and other artists who were at the peak of their popularity during that era of East Coast rap dominance. Music fans who might have had zero interest in watching a basketball drama about a female coach in Brooklyn were more than happy to buy the soundtrack album to get new tracks from their favorite artists, which explains how the album managed to sell over 500,000 copies and earn its platinum certification from the Recording Industry Association of America. Meanwhile, the film itself limped to a total domestic box office gross of just over $10 million, barely recouping its production budget and disappearing from theaters after a brief run. This kind of disconnect between a successful soundtrack and an unsuccessful film has happened multiple times throughout movie history, with albums from films like Above the Rim, Dangerous Minds, and Judgment Night all becoming cultural touchstones, while the movies themselves faded into obscurity. Record labels discovered during the 90s that urban-themed films provided excellent opportunities to release compilation albums featuring multiple hip-hop and R&B artists, creating cross-promotional opportunities where the music helped market the film and the film helped market the music. In the case of Sunset Park, the music side of that equation worked perfectly, while the film side failed to connect with audiences, possibly because the soundtrack attracted music fans who never intended to see the movie in the first place. The irony is that more people probably know the Sunset Park soundtrack exists than know the actual film exists, making it a footnote in hip-hop history while remaining largely forgotten in cinema history. Fact 12. Budget underperformance. From a pure financial perspective, Sunset Park was essentially a break-even proposition at best and a commercial disappointment at worst for everyone involved in its production. The film was made with a production budget of $9.5 million, which was a relatively modest amount for a studio film even back in 1996. But the movie only managed to gross $10.16 million during its entire theatrical run in the United States. When you account for the fact that studios typically only keep about half of the box office revenue after theaters take their cut, and then factor in the costs of marketing and distribution which aren't included in the production budget figures, it becomes clear that Sunset Park lost money for TriStar Pictures, despite technically making more at the box office than it cost to produce. Hollywood accounting is notoriously complex and opaque, but the general rule of thumb is that a film needs to make at least 2 to 3 times its production budget at the box office just to break even when all costs are considered. By that standard, Sunset Park would have needed to gross somewhere between $20 and $30 million to be considered financially successful, meaning it fell far short of profitability, even though it wasn't a complete disaster like some notorious box office bombs. The film opened on April 26, 1996, and faced competition from other releases that spring, including The Craft, Primal Fear, and continued holdover business from films like Twister and The Birdcage that were dominating the box office. Jersey Films, Danny DeVito's production company, had enjoyed major success with Pulp Fiction and Get Shorty in the years leading up to Sunset Park, so this underperformance must have been particularly frustrating given their recent hot streak. The combination of poor box office performance and negative reviews meant that Sunset Park quickly disappeared from cultural consciousness and has remained largely forgotten, except among devoted fans of 90s basketball movies or hip-hop soundtracks. Fact 13. Film debuts. Galore Sunset Park served as the launching pad for multiple acting careers, with several cast members making their very first appearances in a feature film through this production. Talent Harris, who would later go on to have a career in television and film, got his start in Sunset Park as one of the players on the basketball team, giving him valuable on-camera experience and a credit he could use to audition for future roles. Antoine Tanner also made his feature film debut as Drano after being cast to replace Sticky Fingaz in the role, and this opportunity would prove crucial to his long-term career prospects in Hollywood. Tanner would go on to become best known for playing Skills Taylor on the teen drama series One Tree Hill, which ran for 9 seasons from 2003 to 2012, making him a familiar face to an entire generation of television viewers. He also appeared in the 2005 basketball film Coach Carter, starring Samuel L. Jackson, allowing him to come full circle by appearing in another inspirational basketball movie nearly a decade after Sunset Park gave him his first break. For young actors trying to break into the entertainment industry, getting cast in any feature film is a significant achievement that can open doors and create opportunities for future work, even if the film itself doesn't become a commercial or critical success. Film debuts are important milestones in an actor's career because they represent the moment when someone transitions from aspiring performer to working professional with actual credits to their name. The fact that multiple cast members of Sunset Park were making their film debuts also suggests that the production was willing to take chances on unknown talent rather than filling every role with established actors, which is sometimes a necessity when working with a modest budget that doesn't allow for big-name stars in every part. Fact 14. Filmed year before release. The production timeline for Sunset Park reveals an unusually long gap between when the cameras stopped rolling and when audiences finally got to see the finished product in theaters. Principal photography took place over approximately 2 months between February and April of 1995, with the cast and crew wrapping production in the spring of that year. But the film didn't receive its theatrical release until April 26, 1996, creating a full-year delay between filming and release. This kind of extended post-production and release delay can happen for various reasons in the film industry, ranging from technical issues that require additional editing or reshoots, to strategic decisions by studios about when to release a film for maximum commercial impact, to problems with test screenings that lead to changes in the final cut. Sometimes studios will hold a completed film for many months because they don't have confidence in its commercial prospects and want to dump it in a less competitive release window, or because they're trying to space out releases from the same genre or target demographic. In the case of Sunset Park, the year-long delay suggests that TriStar Pictures may have struggled to figure out exactly how to market and position the film, or perhaps there were creative disagreements about the final edit that took time to resolve. Post-production work, including editing, sound mixing, visual effects if any, and musical scoring can take several months, even under ideal circumstances. But a full year from the end of filming to theatrical release is longer than average for a straightforward drama without complicated special effects. The delay also meant that some of the hip-hop music featured in the soundtrack might have felt slightly dated by the time the film finally came out, since the music industry moves quickly and artists who were hot in early 1995 might have been less relevant by spring of 1996. Fact 15. Critically panned. Despite star power. Despite having the backing of successful producer Danny DeVito and starring his Emmy Award-winning wife, Rhea Perlman, who had won 4 Emmy Awards for her iconic role as Carla Tortelli on the sitcom Cheers' Sunset Park, was absolutely savaged by film critics when it was released in 1996. The film currently holds a dismal 13% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, which aggregates reviews from both professional critics and publications, making it one of the worst-reviewed basketball films of the entire 1990s decade. This critical rejection is particularly notable because the film had many elements that should have worked in its favor, including a tried-and-true underdog sports story formula, a talented lead actress with proven comedic and dramatic chops, and production values that were perfectly adequate for this type of movie. Critics found fault with various aspects of the film, including its predictable plot that hit all the familiar beats of inspirational sports movies without adding anything new or interesting to the formula, the dialogue which sometimes felt stilted or unrealistic, and the overall execution which failed to generate genuine emotional investment in the characters or their journey. Some reviewers specifically noted that Rhea Perlman seemed miscast in the role of a tough Brooklyn basketball coach, suggesting that her natural comedic energy and small stature made it difficult to accept her as someone who could command respect from teenage athletes and transform a losing team into champions. The poor critical reception combined with weak box office performance meant that Sunset Park failed on multiple levels and has largely been forgotten in the decades since its release, remembered primarily by fans of 90s hip-hop who bought the platinum-selling soundtrack rather than by sports movie enthusiasts or Rhea Perlman fans. The film's 13% Rotten Tomatoes score puts it in the company of notorious cinematic failures and well below other basketball films from the same era, like Space Jam, He Got Game, and White Men Can't Jump, all of which received significantly better reviews despite their own flaws and limitations.